My name is William Motley. I'm program leader at Rapport Therapeutics for our lead program, RAP-219. So about 3 million people in the United States have epilepsy, and about 2 million of those patients have focal onset seizures. Among those patients with focal onset seizures, 30 to 40% continue to have focal onset seizures with available medications. Despite a lot of progress in available medications over the last 30 to 40 years, that statistic continues to be relatively fixed. So we see a great deal of need for additional available therapies for patients with focal onset seizures, and in particular, therapies that have the promise and potential to deliver seizure freedom to patients with epilepsy. Our drug, RAP-219, targets AMPA receptors. AMPA receptors are key excitatory neurotransmitter receptors in the brain that signal excitatory neurotransmission throughout the brain. And AMPA receptors themselves are a validated, clinically efficacious target in epilepsy. We target AMPA receptors in a new and different way, utilizing an accessory protein called TARP gamma 8. So our drug, RAP-219, is a negative allosteric modulator of those AMPA receptors that are bound to TARP gamma 8. And the importance of that is that TARP gamma 8 is only expressed in the forebrain, so only in the mesial temporal lobe and neocortex, and absent from the hindbrain. When you look at other non-selective AMPA targeting agents, we feel as though a lot of their dose-limiting tolerability issues are because of targeting in the hindbrain. By targeting AMPA receptors in the forebrain only, we feel as though we have the opportunity to have all the benefits, because that is where focal onset seizures originate and propagate, but have the potential to broaden the therapeutic index and dial out some of those dose-limiting tolerability issues. Just to take a step back, we are presenting additional data from our phase 2 trial. We presented top-line data from our phase 2 study in September of last year, and it might be worth just reviewing those data first. Our study was in participants with drug-resistant focal onset seizures with a responsive neurostimulator device. We used patients with the RNS device in our study because, in addition to the RNS device being a therapeutic device, it also is a device where it marks biomarker data and epileptiform events. And by recording how patients are doing in a continuous ambulatory monitoring from the device, we had the opportunity to see how patients did when we added RAP-219. And so patients in our study had a baseline period, including a 4-week prospective baseline period where they recorded how many clinical events they had, then entered an 8-week treatment period where they received 0.75 milligrams of RAP-219 for 5 days and 1.25 milligrams of RAP-219 for the rest of the 8-week treatment period, and then stopped treatment and entered an 8-week follow-up period. During the treatment period, the top-line data that we reported in September, patients experienced a 71% decrease in long episodes, which are the key biomarker output from the device that we were following as our primary endpoint, and a 78% decrease in clinical seizure during that 8-week treatment period. So at AAN, we are sharing data from the follow-up period of our study after patients have stopped taking RAP-219. RAP-219 is a very potent and selective molecule. It also has a long half-life. So we'll be updating the half-life. We had initially shared that it was a 14-day half-life, but additional data from healthy volunteer studies and from our phase 2 have allowed us to extend that. The half-life of RAP-219 is 22 days. After patients stopped RAP-219, because of that long half-life, the drug remains in their system. And we continued to follow clinical seizure frequency and RNS event frequency after the cessation of treatment. We'll be sharing data, and what we see in the data is that in the first 4 weeks after stopping treatment, the effects of RAP-219 were numerically improved, so even better than the observations that I just shared from the treatment period. And then in the last 4 weeks, continue to see meaningful effects in that period as well. So overall, we think that the follow-up period data give us even more confidence, both in the effects we'll see in future studies that are longer, and in our understanding of the dose and efficacy relationship that we saw in the study. We still see a great deal of benefit in daily dosing despite the long half-life for many reasons. You're right that the long half-life does potentially afford an opportunity for different dosing schedules, but we think it's best for patients and providers to have a daily medication. Having said that, we are also developing a long-acting injectable formulation of RAP-219, and we think this has the potential to be the first available long-acting injectable therapy for patients with focal onset seizures. So the current medication is administered as an oral daily tablet medication, but a long-acting injectable formulation would be have the potential to be once monthly or even less frequent administration. That is still in research phase and entering IND-enabling studies. We're really pleased with the data that we saw in the study, and we're really looking forward to bringing RAP-219 into phase 3 studies. We're particularly pleased at the effects we saw both on clinical seizure frequency and the biomarker data, and the nice correlation we see between those results that give us a great deal of confidence that the effects we see are meaningful and reproducible.